All right, welcome everybody to week 2, day 2. So here's what I've been working on. Basically, my daughter made this world here, and there is a game jam that is due tomorrow at noon, and I've been grinding away on that on thing for this international competition and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a little bit tired as a result of that. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, really did drink too much coffee yesterday though. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about truth. Okay, so all of your arguments were due at 10 today, and then it should give you peer reviews. Could you guys check to see if you have peer reviews? And yeah, give you guys an extra half hour a day. You guys got your peer reviews, and so you're going to read the other person's argument, and you're going to look at their link, their URL, see if it says what they say they're going to say, and try and refute it one way or another. Either if their logic doesn't work, or if their URL doesn't say what it claims they said, or if not, then you just have to present your own counterclaim and make your own counter evidence and things like that. Okay, so it should be a fun exercise for you. There is no other homework due on Friday. That's your daily work. Okay, so we're just going to talk today for an hour. Okay, so here's a claim. War is the continuation of politics by other means. Can we see who your peer reviews are? Yeah, there's a spot at the top right that shows you where your peer reviews are. It doesn't allow you to comment on the person for the review. Your response should be about a paragraph or so. Okay. So here's the claim. War is the continuation of politics by other means. What do you think that means? How would you describe this? Is this true? Is it false? What is the claim being made here? Is it fine if you already submitted a PDF? Should be fine. Yeah, as long as people can read it. You know, what's your take on this? War is pushing an agenda for something, but violence are more than just debate. Okay? Yeah. So if you want to accomplish something through politics and you can't get it through talking, then you can do it through war as well. There's always war in politics. Maybe not. Maybe if you get what you want through politics, you don't have to go to war. All right? They have speeches and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, I think Ashley has a good take on it. Sometimes, you're trying to get access to a port or something, and the other country isn't letting you get access to a port, and then you go to war with them and take it. Right? Do you think it's a true claim or not? War is the fight for culture and beliefs. Politics getting ruthless like in war. I agree, because war starts because of politics. Say two countries disagree on a political issue, then war is likely to occur. Okay. I mean, it's an interesting question. Like, is this, what does it mean for something to be true? Right? It's correct. That you agree with Clausewitz? Does it, is this something that can be true, or is it just an opinion? Accurate metaphor? Are there any wars that aren't based on political debates? Bywater disagrees. Okay, what's the reason for you disagreeing with Clausewitz here? We've already seen this in history, I think. I think it's an opinion that people mostly agree to. Okay. That's a good way of putting it. Okay. Okay. So, one thing that Clausewitz introduced, and I'll tie this to reality here, is he introduced the notion of fog of war. If you've ever played StarCraft or Age of Empires or something like that, you're probably aware of the concept of the fog of war, which means something completely different in history. But they adapted it for video games. And let's see. So that is how they draw fog of war in a video game, right? You can see the areas around your people, and everything beyond that, you don't know what's happening. So there could be a giant enemy army right here, and you would not see them until they stepped into your vision. So they adapted that term from Clausewitz's book on war. And he said that when you're dealing with war in particular, you're going to be getting contradictory information. You're going to be saying, sir, the enemy's on that ridge over there. And then some other guy's going to run up and say, sir, they're in the valley down there. And you have to make a decision, right, based on imperfect, contradictory, and partial information. Okay? So, horror games, yeah, you don't have total view of the world. And USA's introduction to World War II wasn't because of politics, it's because you're attacked. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's a good idea for us to own this country's land, or to be categorized differently. Okay. So his point here is that there's sort of this human tendency to want certainty. We want facts, and we want to have enough knowledge to, we're going to study a subject extensively, and only after all the facts are in, then we want to, decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But as I think the last year and a half has shown, with the pandemic, that you're going to be getting contradictory information. You're going to be getting partial information. When COVID broke out, we didn't know exactly how it transmitted, what the risks were in being around other people. If you go to the grocery store, can you get it from touching a box of cereal that a person with COVID touched, and so people would take their groceries home and leave them out for, a week, before touching them, or they would disinfect, all of the cereal boxes they take home and stuff like that. And then over time, as people came out with studies, then, we started filling in some of the details, like, how long the virus can live on the surface. So you don't have to wait for a week anymore. Just leaving it out for a day or two is probably better. And then that's cool and all. But in the meantime, you got to make decisions for your life, right? You got to. Do you understand? Like, we've been living in a pandemic. I'm sure you all had some point where you didn't really know something about the virus, like, can it. How infectious is it from other people? How effective masks are? How effective the vaccine is? Will there be a vaccine? If you're talking about 2020, how long that'll be? How long is this lockdown going to last? Right? Because originally we went into the lockdown thinking it would be a couple weeks, and it turned into a year, right? So there is a lot of partial and contradictory and imperfect information we get in life, and we've got to navigate life anyway. Okay? We very rarely, in times of crisis, we very rarely have all the facts. We are going to be having, different people tell us different things. Trump was touting, hydroxychloroquine, and then later on ivermectin as, miracle cures for COVID. And there were some scientific evidence to support that, and then there was arguably more scientific evidence against it. But at the same time, there was some evidence for it. So, like, if you got COVID, like, would it, some people just took hydroxychloroquine anyway. And because you don't know. Like, it's like, you don't know. When you're in the moment, it's like, well, this thing might kill me. I might take it. And so, some people took it and probably didn't make any difference. And some people took, like, fish medicine that had hydroxychloroquine in it and killed themselves using it. So that was a big oof, And opinions and facts were everywhere. I couldn't tell what was true and what wasn't. Yeah, and that's how times of crisis are. It's one thing to be like, all right, I'll just wait for the scientific consensus to come in 2 years, and in the meantime, what are you going to do? Not leave your house? Go about your daily business as if nothing was happening? What are you going to do in the meantime? Do you understand? And so that's where life gets interesting. When there's contradictory scientific evidence, when there's partial scientific evidence, there's a couple of weak studies indicating that maybe something does something. How do you base your behavior on it? That's a real tough question. Like, there's no good answer to that. I like the not going out of the house, but I already did that mostly anyway. Yeah, it helps if you're a computer science major. Bidoof. Yeah. So, yeah, bleach everything. It's one of those things. And like, one example from my own life was, I read some studies that suggested that vitamin D might help with COVID. I read some more about vitamin D. It's like, most people are vitamin D deficient, especially in wintertime. And this was around wintertime last year. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll take vitamin D supplements. I don't think, I looked over the dosing, and it's pretty well tolerated. It's pretty hard to overdose if you're taking, regular, a couple gummies a day or something like that. So I'm like, I guess I'll take vitamin D. Like, I don't know. I don't know if this will do anything or not, but it probably won't hurt, and it might have, there's some evidence that it helps, and I don't know, I might need it anyway. So, I kind of weighed the pros and cons. I'm like, all right, well, it's like $10 out of my life, and there's probably not much in the way of downside. So I started taking vitamin D last winter. And did it make any difference? I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea. I don't know. I still can't tell you. But when you're in the moment, you don't have that luxury. I heard about it as that it helps your immune system. Yeah, I mean, it might just like help anyway. So, but when you're in the moment, you don't have that luxury of being like, well, I'll just wait a year, because in the meantime, are you going to be taking vitamin D or not? Right? You got to be doing something in the meantime. The decision is forced upon you. You know what I mean? And what are you guys talking about? Oh, Bidoof, yeah. And so you just don't have the ability to just like wait for certainty. And that's something that Clausewitz was talking about with On War, is that people that want certainty, especially in chaos and times of crisis, they get paralyzed, right? Because you can't just like not react, right? Is the enemy on the mountain? Is the enemy in the valley? I'm going to do nothing until I know for sure, and then in the meantime, Napoleon surrounded you and destroyed your army. You know what I mean? And that was something that Napoleon was pretty darn good at. Was you would think he's over there, right? And you think, all right, we're going to meet Napoleon up in a couple days. Our scouts say he's 40 miles away that way. And then, surprise, he wasn't 40 miles that way. He's knocking on your door. And, that couldn't possibly be his real army. That must be just his vanguard. Wrong. That was actually Napoleon's main army. You've now lost your army. Time to make another coalition, right? And that's one of the ways that Napoleon kept winning, was he moved really, really fast, and he would have people thinking he's here, and he wouldn't be there. And because people, especially on the other side, couldn't react to the chaos of war and the uncertainty and partial information of war, he kept winning. You know, so you guys can leave whenever you want. Yeah, it's true. I'm just going to be recording till 11:30, and you can just pick this up later. That's fine. So yeah, and yeah, this is an asynchronous class. You don't have to, you know, be here for a lecture or anything. So fish medicine or fish oil. Yeah, fish oil. Yeah, I don't know. Fish oil seems like it would taste bad. Yeah, people are leaving the chat. No, that's fine. That's fine. It's on me. So, what is truth? Right. That's one of the great. That is one of the great questions in philosophy. You know, what is truth? What is it? What does it mean for something to be true? You know. So there's a whole branch of philosophy called epistemology, which is just the study of what it means for something to be true. Like, this is such a deep question that it has its own branch. You know, like it's not like, you know, maybe you're expecting me to, like, when I click, you know, to like have it like, this is what truth is. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a good answer for you. You know, this question's enough for me to break my head. Yeah, it's a really deep question. You know, and there's you know, a lot of competing theories on what it means for something to be true, and people have been debating it for a long time. Over 2,000 years they've been trying to debate, what does it mean for something to be true? You know, they're all different forms of, like, you know, people making, how can I say this without it being circular, making, you know, some sort of fact about reality or something. I don't know. That might even be a little bit biased, right? Like, that's the way things are. Right? So, and so, you know, Clausewitz made a claim that war is, you know, chaos, and you know, you get partial and contradictory information. You know, is it true? Like, is it, you know, is war continuation of politics by other means? Is that true, or is that just an opinion? Is that something that could be true? Is it true some of the time? Like, Steam has a sale right now for Battlefield 5 for $5. Yeah, but I mean, it's Battlefield 5, so $5 is a little bit too much. It's yeah, I mean, it's probably worth $5. I would say it's more like a $3.50, but yeah, whatever. So, yeah, I bought it when it came out, and I did that just to see, you know, the real-time ray tracing, you know, see how that worked, and it was okay. So here's another claim. There is no truth, there's only power. Do you agree with this? Is this true? Is it true there is no truth? Only power. Yes? True? Kind of? That's deep. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of deep statements in this class. Yeah, if I don't hurt your brain at least once a week, then I'm doing something wrong. Mostly what people believe to be truth is just the majority of what people believe. I don't really think it's true. My brain is hurting all right. Okay. Well, if you agree with it, you know, if you say it's true that there is no truth, isn't that a contradiction? Or maybe not. You know, maybe, you know, since there is no such thing as truth, you know, it's just, you know, if people agree there's truth, then there's truth. Maybe. There's probably some way of expressing that without contradiction. You're just saying, I agree. You know, it's not true, I just agree that there is no truth. Yeah. Well, if you say true, then it's not true. Right? It's like if 90% of people believe that tomatoes are poisonous, then that becomes the truth. Okay. Uh, but is it actually true that, I mean, tomatoes are part of the nightshade family, right? Um, but is it actually true? Like, even if people agree that it's true, that tomatoes are poisonous, is it actually true? You know, it's considered true. There's always three sides to the story: your side, their side, and the truth. Yeah. Tomato leaves are poisonous, not the tomatoes. All right. Yeah. I got a tomato in my backyard here. Tomatoes are supposed to be like annual, like creatures or something. And so I took the tomato plant and put it out in the side yard to throw it away. And it somehow lived an entire Fresno winter, like without me watering it or taking care of it at all. And I come back in the spring and it's actually made a tomato somehow. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll take you back, I guess. It's like, love me. Here's a tomato. Okay. You take it back, prune it, it's healthy somehow. I don't know. How it survived like out in the side yard, no watering in Fresno in winter when they're supposed to die over the winter? I don't know. So is it true that they're annuals? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that. So we call it Mr. T now for tomato. So, frost helped keep it water. Yeah, it must have. I don't know. It's like, especially in the summertime, like it is hard keeping things alive sometimes, when it's like 9 million degrees outside. So is it true that tomatoes are annuals? Like, I don't know. I used to think it was true that they would die every year, and now I'm just like, I don't know. Apparently, if you just don't water them, they live. So I don't like tomatoes. I don't like them cooked in pizza or calzones or in a sauce. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so there's a lot of takes on truth, and one of the big sources of disagreement in our society is over what kind of truth model people use. So if you think that truth comes from like science, let's say, right, like that which is true is that which science has kind of come to a consensus on, right? So it is true that COVID spreads by droplets because science has come to a consensus that it is spread by droplets. It's not spread by touch or, like it doesn't blood to blood contact, right? Although, who knows? I don't know if anyone's done a study on that. Or, then you're going to run into an issue if you have somebody who says there is no truth, there's only power, right? So if one person believes that truth comes from science and scientific consensus, and another person believes there is no such thing as truth, there's just power, then you're going to have a problem, right? Like, there's going to be a fundamental disagreement about how you talk about reality, and there's going to be a fundamental disagreement about how you interact with each other, and, like, how you go about your business, I don't want to get into the whole vaccine debate, but, a lot of people say that vaccines are about power, and so, that might tie into that statement there, Alfredo calzones and calzones with no sauce. Interesting. Huh. Yeah. So it's it's there's gonna be like a fundamental disagreement that really can't be resolved, right? I'm a firm believer in debate as a way of like testing your ideas and beliefs. But if somebody's just like, yeah, I don't share your same view on truth, yeah, I don't know what you can do about that, like if somebody just doesn't agree fundamentally on what truth means, it's you're kind of done. You know what I mean? Like there's not like really a whole lot you can say. I mean, you could express your view and have them express their view and go, all right, thank you, and go about your day. But you can't really convince somebody like, hey, look, here's some scientific evidence. Like you can't convince somebody if they don't share your same views on truth. And I'm not even saying that scientific consensus is what truth means. I'm just saying, like, if there's somebody who believes that, then they're going to have they're going to have a difference. Yeah, true is 1, false is 0. Right? It's crazy how different the truth is to everybody, despite science or proven facts. Yeah, and even if you're like a believer in science, and there's another believer in science, you can still disagree. Like that happens all the time. Scientists will disagree over the facts and the interpretation of the facts, and that's normal. But as long as they share the same underlying, like this is how truth works notion, then they can debate and talk and have a conversation. Whereas when somebody says that there is no truth, there's just agreement. Like I'm just expressing an emotion. If I say that's true, that's another view on truth, right? I'm just expressing an emotion. I happen to agree with that. Then you're gonna have a fundamental problem, right? If you're talking with somebody who believes that truth comes about from society agreeing something's true, right? All these different models of truth that we're going to get into, like if you don't share it, yeah, it's like just at the very most fundamental root level, like it's very difficult to have a debate, let alone like actually change your view and share information and stuff like that. So it's, when you're having a conversation with somebody, if you find out they're using a different level of truth than you, then it's like you can either work with that or work around it. Like, okay, well, if you only believe that which is true is that which society agrees is true, like tomatoes are poisonous or something like the example given earlier, then you're like, all right, okay, well, in your worldview, and if I'm going to try and teach you, I'm trying to convince you to learn C++, programming language C++. Hey, everybody agrees that you should learn C++, right? Like you can modify your argument to like kind of use their worldview. You know what I mean? So you can't really use your own. You're like, all right, well, let's look at the the statistics on which programming languages are the most popular, and look, we'll see that all right, there's JavaScript, which has nothing to do with C++, but like Java comes from C++ kind of, and C# comes from C++. So look, and C is very similar to C++. Look, if you learn C++, you can see that most people agree you should learn something in that family, and so you can work around it, if you're aware of these differences. Okay. All right, see ya. What is C++ is a programming language, right? But my point is, like, if somebody believes in consensus as setting truth, like somebody said earlier, if there's a consensus that tomatoes are poisonous, they're poisonous, then, you have, if you understand that difference, then you can kind of work around it. And if you want to. I think the truth should just be absolute facts that are known to be true. Like rocks are non-living things, but it can be mixed up. Power of people spreading rumors and gossip, truthfully bent and twisted. Yeah. Okay. So knowledge. So what does it mean when you know something? Right? There's these things called statements. A statement is something that's true or false, or you can call it proposition maybe. Can you think of a sentence? Before we get to knowledge, can you think of an English sentence that's grammatically correct, but isn't true or false? Can you think of an English sentence that's grammatically correct, but is not true or false? What is your favorite color? Yeah, it's a question. Right? It's a pretty good one. Speaking of which, I'm going to issue your first Xi books today, and it'll be due in a week. And I'll mention it again on Friday for those of you that left early. But I'll issue one reading on piracy, and then we'll start getting into truth and things like that. Okay. So what do you think it means to know something? What do you think it means to know something? I know that Dungeons & Dragons is the best role. I know that In Japanese, the te form is used for imperative statements. To understand the facts, you just know it. Yeah. To truly understand how something works and functions, maybe. To have experience and skills with something. Okay, yeah. I know Japanese. Yeah, sure. I have experience and skills with it. I know C++. Sure. Okay. To have a memory of something that you consider to be a fact. Okay. So, yeah. You know, I think I know that tomatoes are not annuals. I know what I ate for breakfast this morning. Yeah, it's it's just a nonsense statement. So, traditionally, when we say we know something, it's something that's true. Like, I know that in Japanese, the te form is used for imperatives. If it actually is the case that te form is used for imperatives, justified means I can grab my, textbook or a book of Japanese grammar, open it to a page, and be like, boom, here it is. Here's what the te form means in Japanese. I can justify my claim. If this sounds familiar to what we were doing with our arguments, yeah. So, never mind, I forgot. To have neurons storing chemicals in a specific pattern, firing in a specific order. And it has to be a belief. It has to be something that you believe as well. And so that's sort of the criteria for knowing something, traditionally at least. There's probably a fourth bullet point nowadays due to the results of a guy called Gettier, who said this is not good enough. We need something more than this as well. But we don't have to worry about that right now. So, tell me different ways that you can know something. How are different ways you could come to know something? Personal knowledge and experience, sure. Yeah. I go outside. Sky is blue. All right, I know the sky is blue. It's true. It's justified. It's a belief I have. I know it. I know the sky is blue. Reading, sure. Reading a book, research, sure. Reading a paper, especially a peer-reviewed paper, from a trustworthy, unbiased source, sure. Reading your textbooks, great example. Listening to your professor, assuming your professor is not messing with you. Right. You can receive knowledge from other people through the teachings of others, sure. Yeah, textbooks, professors, sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Artifacts, yeah. You go to a dig, you dig up camel bones. You're like, oh, look, there was there were camels here 2,000 years ago. Cool. Good. So, there's kind of two main schools of thought as to how you can come to know something. The first one is called a priori. And a priori means prior to observation, prior to experience. And a priori knowledge is things like math, logic, things like that. So, for example, 2 plus 2 is 4. Now, I could maybe figure that out through experimentation. I could pick up 2 apples and be like, look, there's now 4 if I add them together. But, what if I wanted to add a trillion and a trillion? I'm probably not going to be able to count that high. And in fact, if I did try counting up to a trillion, I'd probably make a mistake at some point. Right? So, and if I tried adding even 1,000 people and 1,000 people together, I would probably not get 2,000. As people are moving around. And so, if you try making an observation of 1,000 people and 1,000 people, and you get 1,999, you say, no, 1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000. Right? You trust your reason more than you trust your experimentation when it comes to things like math and logic, right? Like you're like, no, I know that I made an observation error, right? And I know that, I know it, because reason, right? 1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000. There's no debate over this. That's just how it is. I know this from the power of my mind, right? And if reality doesn't conform to what I know to be true, then reality is wrong, right? I made an observation error when I was trying to count 1,000 kittens all climbing around. You know what I mean? So, we're going to be learning more about logic later, but that's just sort of the general idea for a priori knowledge. It's things you can just kind of sit at home in your chair and close your eyes and think, and you're like, okay, well, if a bachelor means an unmarried man, then could there be a married bachelor? And the answer is no. Because a bachelor means a person's unmarried, and if they're married, they're not, it's a contradiction, right? So there cannot be an unmarried bachelor. Now, if you wanted to, start equivocating, you'd be like, well, I have a bachelor's degree, so that makes me a bachelor, and I'm married. So, yeah. But, yeah, so set that aside for now. We'll talk more about equivocation at a later date. But, yeah, basically, you can just kind of close your eyes and be like, all right, well, if a quadruped is an animal with 4 legs, then an octopus is not a quadruped because it's got 8 legs. You know, like you just sit there and, and just know that about an octopus. An octopus is not a quadruped. You know, you don't have to go out and observe an octopus. You just know from the fact that an octopus is an animal with 8 tentacles, and a quadruped is something with 4 legs, that an octopus is not a quadruped. You don't have to go there. You don't have to observe every triangle in existence to know that you can't have a 4-sided triangle. You know what I mean? Like, a triangle is defined as something with 3 sides, So you don't have to go to Australia and go through the outback looking for a 4-sided triangle. You don't have to do that. You just know. You don't have to waste your time on it. You just know through the power of reason that there is no 4-sided triangle out there. Okay. So, does that make sense? Like, that's the a priori way of knowing things. And there's a whole school of thought called rationalism, sometimes called the continental school of thought, which is different from continental philosophy somehow. That is basically like, this is how we know things. We know things through just thinking about them. And to contrast that is the empiricist school of thought. And so empiricism is the basis of science, right? And so empiricism is based on observations. So you make an empirical observation. So you know things through observing them, right? Like, so the person that said artifacts, you go to a dig site and you observe, look, there's camel bones here. And we didn't used to think that there were camels in the ancient Near East at this date, but we just found camel bones. So there were, and we know that now. But were they domesticated? Let's look at the bones and see if they were domesticated animals or wild or something, And so empiricists base their knowledge on observations, and it could be an observation of an artifact. It could be you do an experiment with some chemicals. You could get out a timer and stopwatch and measure how fast a car moves. You're like, all right, that car is going 60 miles an hour. That's empiricism. So empiricism is based on watching things, essentially. And people write it down. As MythBusters says, science is basically writing down your observations. That's how MythBusters define science. You just make an observation, you write it down. There you go. That's science. And then people will look at the observations and be like, okay, well, the amount of snowfall we've gotten every year has gone down, so I think we're in a drought right now. Something like that, right? You write down your rainfall observations every year, and then somebody looks at them like, okay, I think we're in a drought, So that's called the empiricist school of thought. And these two schools of thought oftentimes disagree, with each other, and you can even see that today. Like there are people who will only believe things that you can observe to be true, and that's going to cause a fundamental conflict, right? Like with somebody who believes that you can learn things through reason, right? You just it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard to have a conversation, right? Discuss the matter of God. Does God exist, right? An empiricist might say, I can't observe God, therefore, for all intents and purposes, he or she doesn't exist, right? That's a very common claim that an empiricist would make. And rationalists might say, well, look, there's these good philosophical arguments for God existing, so I think there's some pretty good reasons to believe in God, and they just won't have any ability to communicate with each other, right? Like, they'll say words to each other, but like, when one person believes the only way you can know something is through seeing it and touching it, like, you're just not going to be able to convince that person. Like, you have this great logical argument, the contingency argument, here you go, it's, try to counter it. And the other person's like, no, I don't need to, I can't touch, I can't see it, so, for all intents and purposes, it's not true. So there's just no progress that's able to be made if they disagree at that most fundamental level. Okay, there's no water in the canal I live in. Yeah, that's an observation. That's an empirical observation. And so we'll just end here today. Just tell me which one you prefer. Do you like rationalism? Do you like empiricism? Do you like both? Do you like neither? Go ahead and post in the chat channel which you have more of an affinity for, and then after you post that, then you can peace out. We'll pick it up on Friday. Right, yeah, see ya. Both, rationalism, both. What time is the peer review due? The peer review will be due at the start of class on Friday. So you have the normal, that's your daily work. There's no other quiz or anything like that. How fast do I respond to emails? In general, if you want a fast response, Discord's the best way of reaching me, but I check my emails once a day. Kearney, come to Pizza Factory and fry it. I'll give you a discount. An Alfredo calzone. What time do you? Nah. I don't take calzone bribes. Yeah, I don't know. Alfredo calzone does sound pretty good though. Great valid points, but rationalism gives people open minds about things. Okay, all right. Yeah, sounds good, everyone. So get your peer reviews done, and then we will continue, hopefully exploding your brains a little bit on Friday. All right, see ya.